Thank you so much for joining our webinar on Reality Charting Tips and Tricks, Part 2. We ran a webinar a few weeks ago where we walked you through some of the tips on building a cause and effect chart. And today's session is going to pick up where we left off. So we're going to show you some tips and features you can use after you've built your reality chart. Plus, we'll also give you a preview of RC Pro Enterprise. Before I hand it over to our presenter today, I just want to give a super quick introduction on who we are for those that may not be so familiar with ARMS. ARMS Reliability is an authorized global training provider of the Apollo root cause analysis methodology. And we have over 15 certified trainers from various backgrounds located around the world. We provide a range of RCA training courses to suit different roles and levels of involvement in RCA, including participants, facilitators, master facilitators, and managers. We can also provide workshops and annual audits to review and reinvigorate your RCA program. For more information or to view our course outlines or our public training schedule, you can check out apollorootcause.com. In addition to root cause analysis, ARMS Reliability also provides services, software, and training to help clients optimize the reliability of their assets. So if you're interested to learn more about that, please visit armsreliability.com. Just some housekeeping before we get started. You should each have a control panel on your screen where you can find a questions pane. We want to encourage you to type questions to us throughout the presentation today, and we'll try and answer some of those as we go along and at the end of the presentation as well. So if your question doesn't happen to get answered during the live webinar, I will save a list of all of the questions at the end, and we can get Kevin to reply to you directly after the event. Now I'll just introduce Kevin and then make him the presenter. So Kevin is our lead root cause analysis instructor and facilitator. He's an experienced educator, maintenance, and reliability professional with over 33 years spent working in a variety of roles for Alcoa Primary Metals Group. In his last role prior to joining ARMS Reliability, Kevin was a certified Apollo instructor, teaching over 500 classes across the Alcoa group of companies. So he'll be giving us a lot of valuable information and showing us some helpful tips in reality charting today. And I'll just take 1 second here and make Kevin the presenter now. And Kevin, you should be the presenter now, and we should be good to go.
Okay, I've shared my screen, so can you verify that you're seeing it?
I can see it.
Okay, good. Welcome, everybody. Again, my name is Kevin Stewart. I think I recognize some of the names on there. Some of you may have had a class from me, or we may have run across paths in some of the seminars and conferences over the years, so appreciate your attending. As Susan mentioned, today is kind of a continuation of what we did before. The previous one was about how to build a chart, all the little details and things about it. So this time, rather than build the chart, I'm going to start with one that I have already built and talk about how to manipulate, do, look, get information out, and finally print, etc. So just so you know where this chart came from, it is an example from training that we give. It's about the hand bleeding, and I've gone through and put in some information so you can see it's there. I'm going to close that down and also show you that it is to the point where I can identify solutions, which is what I wanted to do, because we'll spend some time looking at that part of it. But you'll notice that the problem is defined, the chart has been created, I've done all the rules, check, etc., which is covered in the last one, and I'm ready to go with a green arrow on identify solutions, which we'll get into a little later. So I'm going to close that down. And I'll just give you a quick look at this. As you can see, I've done the details with causes, all sorts of information, make sure I had evidence to stop every place, all the little details that we know. But just generally so you can see, it flows up this way with some information, and we'll talk about it and some of the details that you might want to be running through. So you can see it generally flows up and to the right as we go. And all of these, remember that you can select one of these items here, and it'll always take you back to the beginning. I want to start today with some of the things you may or may not have looked at before, but may be valuable to you if you weren't aware they existed. One of them is the advanced rules. You'll see that you may have seen that just gone by and gone, what the heck? So I'm going to run through them. The space-time logic check, if you click on that, you'll notice that what it does is it comes up and it says, we always talk about the validity check rule number 4. It says it has to happen at the same point in time and space. So this goes through and reminds you the questions to ask. Now, the way it works, if you haven't used it, is you'll notice there's no next or whatever. So what you have to do is you have to click on each question. So if I say, do the causes of this affect each at the same time? If I said yes, I click on that, nothing happens. Do the causes of this effect exist at the same place? I've got the severed capillary and the blood pressure. Yeah, it's all in my hands. If I click yes, you'll notice it flips to the next one. There's no way to get by the next one except by answering both questions, and it's just doing a validity check on each of these. So if you want to do some internal checking on your own or during an off time after you put a chart together, this might be a great thing to just do, particularly at the very beginning when you're learning the process. And you may select any one of these. If I put down no here, I want to say yes and no. You'll notice that it comes back and it says you probably need to do something, meaning I've said it doesn't meet that requirement, so it's telling you probably want to do something about that. So it's an opportunity to go through the process using that. And every time you hit OK, this keeps going. So the space-time logic check is a nice thing to run through a chart on. There's also, tools, advanced rules. There's a causal logic check. I'm going to ask you, if you remove this cause, will the effect still exist? So if I don't have a severed capillary, I've got blood pressure, will my hand be bleeding? Well, you'd say no. So it says it's probably the right one. If I put yes, then what will happen is it'll say, well, you got the wrong stuff on. You may need to redo that in order to make that a good causal set, because if you can remove it and it's still there, then it probably doesn't belong. You need to redo that particular causal set. And it'll just keep going through the same way the other one did. So you just check each one. It's a great way to check for your issues that may be going on with a chart, and many of you who have taken the class from me would hear me say the 3 most important things about causal analysis: logic, logic, and logic. So this is just helping you go through that. I don't want to go through each one. I just want to show you how they work. I'm going to shut that down and go to the last one. The OR logic check. Now, on this one, you're going to see that it says it's complete. That's because there is no OR logic in this particular diagram. So what I want to do is go in. I'm going to show you what would happen. I'm going to go in and put an OR logic in between these 3 right here. So I'm going to modify this and say OR logic. We covered this last time, and submit that, and now it exists. So if I go back up and run the advanced rules and OR logic, it'll come in and it'll say, oh, I got OR logic. It recommends that you obtain necessary evidence to support a definitive causal element. Otherwise, solutions attached to causes on the right may not prevent the occurrence of the problem. So this is valuable because what we've said before, and hopefully we cover that in the class, that is that if you have an OR condition, they become individual starting points. And causes or solutions anywhere to the right of this. If I fix this particular one, and that's the only place it is, it will fix this, but these 2 will still exist. So I may not address my cut hand. So it's always a good idea to run through that and recognize where your solutions are if you have OR conditions. And if you have OR conditions, it means you don't have a definitive, this is what caused that. I've run into many of these, and it becomes a nightmare and very difficult. It becomes more of a troubleshooting document. Just recently, we had many of these in one where there was no evidence. They buried it at the bottom of the sea level, and we just had to put a lot of maybe. And so the root cause analysis is not all that good for what could happen. It's much better at what did happen. So this is just reminding you to look for that when you go through it. Okay, that's the advanced rule. Next thing I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and leave that OR condition in there. Next thing I want to talk about is tracking changes. So we'll go up to Tools again, Track Changes. Again, after you have your chart generated, what may happen is you may want to make some changes to it. Sometimes in between days, sometimes after a little bit of time, discussion, an opportunity for you to look at it with in a more relaxed atmosphere other than under the gun in front of the group. So what you would want to do is turn on the tracking thing. what it does, it starts identifying any changes made to the chart so that if you come back later, you can point them out to somebody. So let's take one. Let's add right here. Let's add a cause. Notice that it comes out with a plus sign, meaning I have added one. So you may put something in there. Test. Now notice that, okay, so I have that. The other thing to recognize about tracking changes is that if you modify it in the same time period, then it's going to recognize that you added that and hasn't been reviewed. So if I, remember how if you're going to identify it, if I click on it, you'll notice how it's now highlighted. If I hit the delete key here, it goes away. So there's no, right now there's no changes to be tracked because I've gotten rid of one I already added. So they all work that way. If you delete it before you continue on and check it, then they won't show up as any changes. But I can add a change. I can add something. Sorry. I'll add one. I can add a second one, same kind of thing. If I delete a card, let's delete this one, I get an X, meaning I have deleted that card. So it's showing you the plus means I've added one, X means I've deleted it, and it grades it out, saying kind of hiding it a little bit from it. Let's say I want to move. Let's say I want to move one. I'll move. I'm going to be careful about which one I move here. Let's take this one and move it to the back of this. Notice how it shows up with an arrow key. So they've got the plus, the X, and the minus telling you what happened. So when you do the review, you can kind of understand that. It does not modify evidence. And it doesn't identify cause type changes. So if I change this to a condition, you'll notice it doesn't give you any indication of that. It will, however, if you decide to, if I decide to change this verbiage, so it's a division to not feed. You'll see it changes to red. So as I go through and change this, you are now able to track that. This is handy for if you want to send a chart to somebody and say, hey, give me your thoughts, give me your input. What do you think? I've used that on homework reviews. People want, I just turn it on, make some changes so they can see it, and then they have a choice to see how I've modified it. It's also valuable in a group environment in the sense that if you have a team and you as a facilitator will make changes to this, if you come back and present a new chart, then it's not their chart, it's your chart. So you want to put changes like this, track them, get everybody to agree that they're okay with those changes. Then you've gone back into the mode where the team now approves the final chart that you have. So when you're done, you have a couple of options. You can accept individual charges by changes by just clicking on it. So if I click on this, it will give me this option. So do I want to accept that or reject it? I'll reject this one. You'll notice it just stays the way it is. The other option is to go up. If you do many changes, you may want to go up and go back to track changes and say, let's review them. So if I hit review, it will start going through each one and say, what do you want to do? You want to accept this deletion or eliminate it? In this particular case, I think I'll accept it so you can see it will take care of that because it's got to go clean. I'm going to reject that one. It'll delete it. I'm going to accept this move and keep it there. There were two here, so it says, do I want to do that? I'm going to accept this one here. And this cause has been changed. Here's one where it comes up, and every once in a while it will do that. You may have made some changes. Even though it moved it, it doesn't show anything, so sometimes you have to look at that. And even I'm struggling with what it was exactly that it's looking at, but sometimes it'll come back to things that don't even have it, so I'm going to accept it. When you get done, it's done. Now it's a team environment kind of issue again. So remember, okay. So that helps you get back there. That was tracking changes. That's a very handy item to get into and know about. We've had a couple of questions about the dashboard, so I wanted to show you that. That might be something that you would look at if you finish a chart. If you go in, this is something that I do use when I do homework review. I'll click on the dashboard. What it does is it gives you as it says, a dashboard, a snapshot of what's going on. So it tells you the number of causes, the solutions, action items, cause path endings, team members. So it gives you an idea. So I will look at this just to see if I'm heavily weighted one way or the other. You can see I'm weighted to conditions, which I'm okay with. I still have a choose, which means that I don't have one of the types picked out. I don't have any solutions, haven't done that yet. I've got an action item that says I got some evidence missing. It shows me what the cause paths are, and if I'm heavily weighted to one particular kind, I might say, that doesn't seem right. So it's a snapshot of what happens. Sometimes it gives you some ideas about, hey, probably should go back and review that a little bit. So this is a good thing to have at your disposal, just to look at it. It kind of gives you a feel for what's going on with a particular analysis, and if you start seeing patterns grow up, you can change that as you do it. I also want to use this then as an opportunity to show you how the export feature works. Many times you may want to get something out of RealityCharting and into something else for whatever reason. When I write a homework review, I want to take this and put it in Excel. So notice that all of these boxes, or if it does have one, I should say, I believe most everyone does, has this export feature. So if we click on export, it'll come in and say, okay, well, I'm going to put it on the clipboard basically, and now it's available to paste in another program. I have my Word document open just ahead of time so that we can show this. You should be seeing that on my screen, so I'll let Susan let me know if that's not the case, but I'm going to paste what I just copied into the Word diagram. So you can see anything I wish to put in there, I can. If it says export, I can do that. Then it becomes a Word document. I can modify it in any shape that I feel like to make it presentable. So I might move those over like that. It does. It changes things around, puts it in the table format, so it's just available to do that. So anything that says export puts it in a format that allows you to drop it into something else, which I find handy sometimes. You want to export a portion of the chart, or you want to export a certain report, anything like that. Okay, that was the dashboard and the export. I also want to look at the action item. I'm going to close this. I want to look at the action item report, which is up here in the reports, and talk a little bit about that. The action item report, you'll see, shows that apparently I'm missing some evidence for a particular cause. So if I click on this, you can always do that. It says what the cause is. If I click on that, it will always position it center left. That's standard for our reality charting. And it shows you what the issue is. It also says that I do not have, it's saying find evidence. So it's saying I don't have this down in here. So if I put evidence in there, that should go away. So if I click on this and select one of my standard evidence, the action item goes away. What I want to do is show you that if I do put that back there, there's one. If I change this to a more information needed, it shows up on the action item report. So I got two there that need to be done. This is basically saying you have no evidence that there was a knife. Somebody has to go find out. Did it exist? Do I have a picture? Do I have a verbal statement or whatever it is? How do I know that the knife exists? This one is saying I've got evidence that it was there, and it's saying what caused that. I need more information about what caused this insufficient force. So I need to go find anything out I can about that. So this action item list is great because what you do is you'll go enter an owner. I'll pick Brian. I had him in the system. Pick the date. And on the sufficient force one, I'd say, fine, let's make Matt the owner of that one. It can take a little longer. 6. Mentioned the export feature down here, so I'm going to export that list back into a Word document or email, whichever you wish. Using this as a method here, so you can see now I've got this, which I can send out to somebody and say, hey, guys, if you're on this list, please find that out. We will reconvene on September 30th after all the information is there and try to finish up our chart. Another thing I want to point out is that this action item can be your single to-do list during an analysis because you even though it does list these, you can put other things in here. For instance, I'll put Kevin to discuss golf. Wayne, since it's Thursday, I'm going to go out golfing. There we go. If I add that, got a listing here that says, and I can modify this box as you see. I've got an item here that also needs to be done. Obviously, that will be me, so I'll put myself down. And a date. So I got to have that done today because I'm going golfing tomorrow. This becomes, again, you can export it, put it in the list. This becomes a list of things to do, which these may need to be done, but not necessarily be associated with a cause. It might just be to find information. It might be to find details. It might be something about it. It might be to make a phone call. So it's a great to-do list when you're doing your analysis, just to keep everything in one single place. And then when you get done on these ones, the way you get rid of these is to fix it. So if I come down here and say, well, let's change that to a stop, that goes away. If I go to this one, I fix this and say I've got evidence, that one will go away. And then if I say, fine, I did that, the way to get rid of this one will be just to hit an X and it goes away. Now my action item list is empty after I've done the analysis. Okay. You'll notice that we talked about last time, you'll notice my charts normally do not have the icons showing all the time. They do exist there all the time, but I tend not to have them show. You can turn that on. I'll just real quickly, even though this was discussed last time, I'll mention the preferences. If I want to say show cause attributes, they will show up all the time. You'll notice that they're there now no matter what happens. I'm going to turn it back off, but that's how you would get that to show up all the time if you're unfamiliar with it. But in a particular cause, one of the things that's very handy while you're doing the analysis, or excuse me, after the analysis, and sometimes notes will come up, you finish with a chart, somebody will say, well, wait a minute, you need to remember something, or only this applies, some notes. So the notes is a pretty handy feature to keep information about a particular cause. It hurt very bad. You can add multiple notes. My own fault, I was distracted. So you can add notes. And then if there are other notes that you've added, you can also link them to an existing action item. So I've got 3 here. I'm going to close that down. But those notes now are with this action item. You can always view them up here with this. It tells you what it is associated with it. I can add additional notes in here. Check golf swing. It's not associated with anyone. If I link that to a cause, I can come up here. Easiest thing would be to link it up here. You might have a report that you want to put in there and just say that, yeah, this report applies. So you have the option to keep all that information in here while you're doing an analysis or after analysis to kind of tidy up everything. And then you'll notice it has export. So you do the same thing, export it, drop it into a document or email file. Okay. Again, I've got the chart done. One of the last things I might do is when I get done with the chart for verification, I might come up here to, view, page layout. I talked about this in my class. I really think it's a good, strong, it's very similar to the advanced logic check, but a little different. So I would come up here and say, look, I'm going to do a causal element view. It always starts from the far left-hand side, and then it goes and shows you these. Remember I said logic, logic, logic. Many times I find that students get messed up by having a lot of other causes on the chart. So what you do, if you use this causal element view, all you see is the ones that cause that, because remember the third principle says these must cause that. So I look at it and say, is hand bleeding caused by a severed capillary and blood pressure? And you might even say, well, yeah, I suppose if I severed it and blood, yeah, I'm not sure how I wouldn't get a hand bleeding. I guess I could say hand capillary, I got a hand, but in any case, that's the way it would work. I don't know why that's stopping, I apologize. The blood pressure, if I follow that down, you'll see it stops. I can always go forward and backwards. So I'll say the last view. If I go down to severed capillary, You'll notice how it starts showing me the individuals. I keep asking, do I get a severed capillary when I have a cut hand and a capillary exists? And maybe, maybe not. Perhaps I need depth in there. So you can look at that and say, yeah, I probably should have that and modify it. But let's say that's something I wanted to do. You'll notice that if I want to, I can't make any changes on this. So what I normally will do, wouldn't you know, I think I can do that. I will make it smaller like this, and you can leave that in there and look at it as you do that. So I've got cut hand here. Cut hand caused by capillary, severed capillary caused by cut hand, capillary exists. If I wanted to add depth of cut, I would add that to the chart based on my causal analysis. So I'm going to insert a condition. Depth of cut. What did I do? Oh, yeah, there it is. And you'll notice I still have tracking on, so I've got to turn that off. But you'll notice it does not update here. I wanted to point this out. If you do this, this is the way it's supposed to work. If I come in here and, oh, well, let's refresh that to make sure I've captured that new change. It always goes back and starts again from the beginning. So I would have to come up here to severed capillary. Now I would see it. So you have to go through it, unfortunately. You can find effects. So if you're halfway through the chart, if you remember what it is, you can look for them and not have to go through the whole chart again. So if you want to find an effect, you're able to pick out something and put it what it is. So if I say, oh, I'm looking for that one with a fishy bait, you say submit, then it goes to there, and you can find it in the chart and do some looking. So it makes it a little easier. But I do recommend that you do that causal element analysis as you go through as your chart. Now recognize also you have this option. There's a view option. So in the chart, I can find the primary effect. I can find an effect. I can close it. I can print this to PDF and export it. Format also allows me to change the page, cause, scale, zoom, etc. So each one of those applies to this individual one. The other one that you might try and wonder about is if you export this. So I've exported it. Don't do that. Okay, now paste. So I'm going to go back to my document. And that's what keep track of what I'm doing. So I hit, and I'm going to paste that. You might be expecting that to paste the entire causal element view in individual pages so that you could review it, which is what I thought originally it might do, but it doesn't. It only exports the individual page you're looking for. So if you wanted to, you could go through individual pages and look at, I don't know how many pages there are on this, it doesn't say the number on them. But you can go through, and if you have some specific ones you want to look at, you can go and export them and page them. But it will not print out the entire causal element section so you can review it. Might be handy if it did. Okay. On the subject, let's talk about linking files. I believe I have one on here already. Yeah, there it is. And I'm going to add another one. You can see that it says go to broken leg finished, and then dot, dot, dot. What that's doing is I'm going to go right above it. Fish exists. So I'm going to say, what if I'm going to stop a desired condition? Let's do this. Let's change that to a reason for stopping of new primary effect. Means it's not part of what I'm going to do. I don't have the right people. It's really something that should be looked at, but it's not necessary for what we're going to do in this particular analysis. So we get done with that. I say, great. You know what? It would really be nice if we could just kind of refer to that. It is a new primary effect, and we did have somebody do one of those. So why can't we just link to an existing chart? Well, guess what? We can. If we go to, and some people may or may not have seen this down here. I got a custom entry, but I do have this one at the bottom that says link file. So if I want to link a file to that, I can browse. I had this set up ahead of time, but it's not going to do that. I thought it would go there. I have one set up just for us. All you'll need is I got fish exists here. So I've got another one, and I'm going to open that, and then I'm going to submit that. So now I've got this fish exists and a broken leg. So now what I've done is use this as a kind of a starting point or a template, if you want to call it that, and I have a bunch of other RCAs linked to that I may have done in the future or in the past that make it easy for me to say. So I get down here and I say, well, you know, fish exists. It was already done. I don't need to copy and paste, which I can do. But in this case, I want to leave it separate. So if I click on this, you'll notice that it just opened that up. It gives you the details, and you'll notice it was just a small one, so you can see how it works. But it's showing up here. Fish exists, ARCA. So I have the option now to look back and forth between the two. And you can have as many as you wish. So if I say, well, I've got another one here, it doesn't make sense where this broken leg, it was just more for showing you, but I'll click on that one and it will say the same thing. Here's another one that you might recognize, which is a broken leg exercise in our training. And you'll see that it added it up here, so now I can still do the same thing. I can go back to the original one or check any one of these. So you do have the opportunity to make this a kind of a template, if you will. I'm going to go back here because what this might be used for would be if you have a bunch of OR conditions, each one becomes its own individual analysis. So in a case like this, you might want to say, look, it's an OR condition. I'm going to separate these out, and each branch after here is going to become its own chart. So you would put a link right here, a link right here, and then each one of those you could look at. Especially if you do the OR conditions, it helps you understand that I need to solve all three if I really want to solve the cut hand. So recognize that the linking files is available. Okay. I believe, I'm going to check to make sure, I believe that the wizard still shows, yep, I can still identify solutions. So what I want to do now is I want to talk about solutions. Solutions. So I'm going to click, there's several ways to do that. If I identify solutions here, it will start me on this process. I'll show you that. It just starts in on the solution generation, so I can use that. Close it, close this. Also, it's the same as up here, solution generation. What this does is go through the solution process inside the reality charting. Is just that, start in the upper right-hand corner, go through each one, ask what I can do to change, control, or prevent an individual cause from happening. So I would start asking myself, what can I do to the fish exist? Well, I can kill all the fish. If I add that, I can come up with some others. I just want to go through the process again. Fish eats the bait. Don't use bait. By the way, when you're doing this, I find, I'm a typer, and I find it's a lot faster to use a keyboard and not flipping back and forth between the mouse. So you may think about that as you're doing this. So if I go to the next cause, went fishing, so obviously don't go fishing. Right? So if I hit tab, tab, and enter, I'm right to the next cause. So it's a lot faster to use your hands than it is to switch back and forth. For fish bait hook again, so we're going to leave that at that tree. I'm going to use that and say that we've gone through the whole process because I want to flip over and show you what happened. I'm going to close. I would go through the entire process all the way down to the very end. You never know where your best solutions are, so don't skip that part. I want to talk about the report. So these solutions then go into a possible solutions report where we get each one that shows up. Each one is not tested. So what I need to do is I need to test each one of these, what we've talked about. And it gives you the criteria, and it shows you what the standard answers are for passing. So if it's all green, that means if I submit it, it says kill all the fish. I don't think that's right. So we can always change it. Let's change one of them. Now that would cause other unacceptable problems. So I'll say yes. If I do that and submit, failed. And don't use bait. That's if I'm hungry though, that might still not solve the problem, but I'm going to assume it does. So I can either select each one, hit submit, or don't forget you can just hit submit. You can also add comments. Here's the causes. Here's the possible solutions. You'll notice that I cannot select that. The only ones that you can implement would be the ones that have passed. So I always recommend not to put owners in there unless you are going to implement it. But if I do, then it becomes available. I'm going to pick my name, date. I can put a comment. 3. And the rank. This is a subjective number, A, B, C. Don't go fishing is probably even easier, so I'm going to make this a B. If I come down here and say don't go fishing, I'm also going to implement that. Might be redundant, but not to use bait, so I might only want to do one of those, but I'll pick a date. And this one I'd say, now that's the A priority. So now I've got a list of solutions, which is what we're supposed to be doing, right? I'll minimize that. The next thing you might do is go up to the assessment section. There's a lot of things that go on here that we don't talk as much about. It's there. Some of you may have looked at it, but it is there, and it's interesting to do. The summary is an opportunity for you to type anything you wish and you cut and paste into there. You just got to put testing. So you can see I can write whatever I want about this, some details around what I'm doing, etc. Recognize also that there's a bunch of criteria. If I click in any one of these boxes, it comes up with a list. This is a standard list that you can always get back to, so don't hesitate to change it if you're playing around and want to. You can always get back to the default. So I can select anything I want. I can change this effectiveness to, I got return, because this is probably a recurrence. I'll change it to that. Then I can change the weighting scale. This isn't as big a deal to me. And each one of these comes across with the, you'll see it doesn't change it, but there is a listing. I'll show you the criteria in a minute. Then from there, I can come down and I can pick a score for total cost. If I don't use the bait, total cost is pretty good, so I'll make that a 4. Sorry. Ease of implementation, it's pretty easy not to use bait. That's a 4. Probability of reoccurrence, pretty low if I don't use bait. Yeah, but it could happen, so I'll make that a 3. There is such a thing as baitless jigging hook fishing. Return on investment, that's still pretty high because I'm not spending as much money, so I'd still do it 4. It gives you a total score over here. And I go through on each one of these and do the same thing. So let's give this one a different score. Notice this one has 29. If you have a long list of items, you might want to then sort these. You can see how I've sorted it. Any one of these, both on the possible solutions and here, anytime you click on a header, it will sort it. So I can sort by the cause. So you see how it switched them around. Solution, implementation, score. I want to see the highest score on this particular one. I can also sort by total score, which is what you probably would want to do, either high to low or low to high. And then if you have a bunch of them, you'd look and say, look, I'm going to do the top 5 that have the highest scores. You can change that, but right now it's set up to be that. So this is available to you, and a lot of people don't use it, but if you need to put something more than subjective viewpoints, you might want to do something like this. Put it in there. Very easy. I'm going to click on this down here so you can see that you can edit the criteria. It's in the preferences. So I can add one. I can change the ranking, 1 to 10, 1 to 10, 1 to 5, 1 to 8, whatever I wish. And I can also add criteria down here. Then recognize if I add one, test ranking 1 to 10. If I add that, you'll see it's there. If I don't like what I've done, I can always come back and say, let's go back to the default. And boom, I'm right back to where we started from. So play around with that all you want. You can always go back if you don't like what it is. So just be aware of that. Okay, close. I haven't been paying attention. I'm assuming somebody will. If they have any questions, somebody will notify me. So what I want to do, after you do the solution assessment, we now have implemented solutions. I want to switch over to the incident report. Right at the bottom, that's why. You come up to the incident report. You should be providing this as part of your finished chart. This is the problem definition. A spot for an executive summary, and if you haven't taken the class, I do have a sample that I think makes sense to me. So if you're willing or want to, if you have my address, email address, you're welcome to send it to me. I will send you a sample that I think makes sense. I'm just going to say see sample. The solutions now are part of this. The date, the time. If you're on there, you're automatically on there. These are just because you don't have a solution doesn't mean you're not part of the team. You can see the notes get in there also. And if I have any references, we'll talk about that in just a minute. And so now I've got my report. And when you go to finalize this, you're going to see that it's going to ask you for a couple of things. You should always finalize a report before you send it off. It says an entry is needed and start date. So it's telling you, reminding you of things you must have. So we'll pick a date. Oops, wait a minute. Couldn't do that. We started it here, and we're going to finish it tomorrow. And I'll say continue, and it says it needs a report date. Each solution needs an owner. So let's see what's going on there. This one says I don't have an owner because I didn't put one in there. So we're going to go ahead and add Matt. And then it will go through and do a final rules check. Shouldn't be very many. I'm just going to click bypass on these so you can see what happens. When it gets done with all the changes, if there are any, there's a final thing. It gets done and it's finalized. The simplest way to tell, it'll tell you that, but also if you view the wizard, it will show you all blue dots. So that's one of the ways to tell that it is finalized. Okay. Now that we got a chart done, the next thing you're going to want to do is print it. We can talk about both. There's viewing and the page layout, which is very, very similar. It's identical. It's just that here you're on the view section instead of the print. So I'm going to go over here to the printing section. I also want to preface this by starting out by saying that we recognize that this is not the easiest thing to do. If you have a couple of hundred causes, it's going to be tough to put it on a piece of paper or paper so you can see. So we know it's difficult. However, they are going to make that a focus for the next version, printing and improving that. There are a few glitches, I think, that I have found, so I'm making notes about those as we go through. I tend not to print it out as much as others, so I just look at it on the screen. I like that a lot. But if you have to print it out, let's talk about it. You have the option to select any one of these, any portion of that. My apologies, I don't want to take the time to try and figure out what that is. I have no idea what caused it because it's never happened before. So I can select any one of these and print it to PDF. If I just select one and say print to PDF, it will go do the outline view. I can select any one of these. I can select the action item report from here if I just want to do that. As you saw, you can also do it internally into the system. And I print that. That's probably not as informative, but you can get every one of these if you want to print them out individually. The thing you're most likely going to be interested in is how do I get it all on a big piece of paper. So I'm going to start over again. Print PDF. The different views are down here: compact view, custom, causal, element view. Again, remember, if you do that, you'll have to pick the item that you want, and it will only print the section. So if I print that to PDF, like it does, it will put everything on there, but you can't move around it. You just have to look at individual pages. So then you can print that. It's a ton of pages, I believe. Most everybody's going to be interested in getting it all in one big piece of paper. My suggestion would be you have the custom view, compact view, or the optimized view. If you're going to put it all on a big piece of paper, my preference is to use the custom view. So it just brings up the chart as you see it. You're going to want to have to set the page up. If I go to page setup, you'll notice that it's going to try and print on 11 by 17. Well, that may or may not work. The easiest thing to do is pick the biggest piece of paper that you can get. 11, this one is 34 by 44, a big A-size drawing for you engineers. So I've got a big piece of paper. I can check portrait or landscape. I'll leave the margin print quality. If I want to make it more detailed, that might give me some options to blow it up a little bit. There's only normal and high. Page layout, 2 across, 1 page down. If that's the case, it shouldn't be that way. Also recognize that you have this to, if you want each page to have some information, you just drag these down and put them wherever you wish. Footer, header, the date in the upper right-hand corner, maybe the file name down in the footer, and then it will print each page with that information on it too. So I've got a big piece of paper selected, and I'm going to submit this. Now the page is set up. I'm going to then say, well, let's print it. I'm going to do this, and bleeding custom. It can take, I don't want to get too big a chart, but it can take a few minutes. And I'll open it up. So as you can see, what I've done is I've made this there now. It's a PDF file, so you can do anything you want. Use the zoom features, etc. A little handy trick is you hit the control and roll your mouse. It just automatically makes it bigger, and so you can then move around to see it. Sometimes. There it is. So then you can see that if I make it bigger, I can start looking at it, but it's all on one piece of paper, so you can see the whole thing if you want. If somebody wants to look at it, you want to send it to them, they can see it just as you might see it on the board or in the software. So that's probably one of the handiest ways to do that, so somebody can look at it just as you did. You don't have the, since it's a PDF, you can look at it, but you need the software in order to be able to manipulate, etc., and use that. Also recognize, let's go back and do that again, so to speak. Coming up here, here's where I generated that. Sorry, let me click on this. You'll notice I have these buttons over here, view. I can always look at this. I can start a new one. I can open something else, close, delete the view. What this means is this. Let's say if you want to change something. Say I don't want this to be there, I want it to be there. You can modify that on the custom view like that. And then you say, I like that one, but I'm not sure it's the right one. If I say new custom view, it's going to come up with a warning. Because you can save this, and I'll start a whole new one. So you can generate a bunch of these, see which one's the best, and then choose that one to do that. It's just saying, if you want to save this, give it a name, and then we'll give you a whole brand new place to start. I'm not going to do that, but that's what it does. The other thing that you might not know is you can add text, modify the pages. I'm still trying to figure out what fit pages does. It may seem like it's supposed to fit on pages, but it doesn't seem to work the way I expect it to, so I'm trying to find that out. But you can't add text on something before you print it. So let's put a box in here, and you can type and put whatever you wish. So now I've got some notes to myself. You can put arrows. If you click in here, you can put a border on there if you wish. So you have those options. Let's say you decide not to keep that. You would click over here, you click in the note, and then you would be able to delete it. And you can check on you have the choice for any kind of, that's available in Word, any of these kind of funny fonts, etc. that you wish. And if you ever want to delete that, you just get in this box and then delete it, and it's gone. So some of you may not have known about that when you're doing this, so you can annotate a chart relatively easy that way. Last thing I want to talk about is package files. So let's close this down. Sorry, I want to close that one down. I want to close this one down. It's hidden behind the sheet. Close that. A package file. What that means is if I put a reference piece of information, pictures are probably a big thing for everybody, so let's pick one here. Knife exists. Cut hand. Well, in order for a cut hand, you might say my hand exists, right? I've got to say hand exists, so I'll put it right here. We're going to have a reference as a picture to say that I had a hand, right? So I'll add a reference. And this is going to be, I don't have any right now, so I have to add a new reference. It goes up to the reference section, and I'm going to put down here. Picture. Add that. I'm going to add a picture. And then I've got to go to pictures, my picture. So select this one, open it, give it a name, just to set it up. We went through this last time. Now I've got a reference in here that says there's an associated file with it. And I can add more, etc. So that one exists on that particular one. Now, the reason I want to mention that was, sorry, I have to submit that. Now I've got this. Let's see, it says reference 1, so it's got it selected. The reason I want to say that is saving a file is pretty easy to do. Most of you, if you've done this, have already done that. But the last thing you want to check with is this. If I want to save this as a package file, you have a couple of options. I'm going to save it as a package file. Now, that means that picture, if I send this to somebody, unfortunately you can't do this in PDF. You have to send references individually, so I would have to find that picture and attach it to an email. But if you're sending it to somebody with the software capability, if I send a packaged file to somebody, what that's going to do is I'm going to say hand bleeding packaged, so I'm just going to save that. So we're going to see what happens is now I have saved that. If I send that file to somebody, it will include the picture. And what happens is if I send that packaged file, I go down and look at my system. Well, I look in my, I saved it in a webinar, sorry, webinar right here. You'll see that I have hand bleeding packaged right there, and it shows you the little icon. That is a packaged file. So I send that packaged file to somebody, and it will include the information from that picture. Now, what it does when you open it up, if I open this one up, what happens is we'll start it all up again, and it's already open. So if I click down here, you can see it clicking on that. So this is the one we just did. Now, if I go up to the reference, it will show you that item. And what it's doing, so you can see, is on my computer, it put a folder in here, and it put that picture in there. That's how come somebody will be able to access it, because it will actually drop things onto the person's computer that exists there. That's basically all of the main subjects I wanted to talk about. I think we've got Simon that wants to mention the enterprise software also, to kind of a teaser for it. So I want to pass it back to Susan and Simon.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. Thanks very much. Real quick before I hand over to Simon, we're just going to do a quick poll. We'd just like to find out from everybody how you store your RCAs. So I'll just launch this poll, and then if you can, everyone can look at their screen, and you should see the question there, select yes or no, and I'll just give everyone a few seconds here to make your selection. Okay. I'll just share the results here. So 83% of us do not share or store our RCAs in a central location for company-wide access. So that's kind of what we expected, pretty typical. So I'm just going to make myself the presenter now, and I'll get Simon to take over with just a couple of slides here to show you RC Pro Enterprise.
Hi everyone, thanks Kevin and Susan, and thanks to everyone for joining the webinar today. We believe that a key piece of any successful RCA programs involves the saving, sharing, and data mining capabilities of completed RCAs. Some clients we work with have these capabilities in-house, and others rely on the enterprise reality charting software to do this. So, as requested by several people prior to today, it was requested that we show just a little bit of the enterprise software. So I'm going to spend a couple of minutes highlighting just a few of the features of the latest enterprise reality charting tool, RC Pro. On the screen, you can currently see the home page for the ARMS RC Pro. And so RC Pro is a browser-based application that resides on a company's server environment. Files can be interchanged easily between the standalone software that Kevin was in earlier today and the enterprise by importing and exporting features. We can also create new files in the enterprise software. One of the main features of RC Pro is the capability to search within the database for past RCAs, similar problems, search for systemic causes, and those type of things. RC Pro saves all files to a central database. There are slight variations, of course, depending on how the IT privileges are set up for the company. But searching within the database and creating reports is quite easy. In the screenshot below, you'll see 4 records for the owner, Darren G, and we can search within Darren G's files, or we can choose to search the entire database. Here on this, the records section of RC Pro, we can search for causes, solutions, action items, problem definitions, files and records, references, like Kevin went over earlier, and also notes. Another main feature of RC Pro is that it allows managers and RCA program leaders to view the status of RCAs, action items, solutions, and importantly, keep an eye on due dates and ensure the implementation of these key actions. This is done by the creation of dashboards or reports, like you see in the screenshot here. The manager here has selected the solutions progress report, so it's listing the owner and the due dates of these solutions. Now, as you can see on this screenshot, there's a few outstanding solutions with due dates that have passed. So with this view, the manager can easily see that either the person has not closed out the RCA by saying that they have been they've been completed, or they just weren't completed. So this is a good way for that manager to follow up and ensure that the solutions are implemented. A few of the other features that our users really like with RC Pro are the ability to send messages between users within the system and file transfers, so colleagues and managers can review the charts. And that's going to automatically save in the database for you, so you're not having to save files and do the tracking as much as Kevin showed before. We can also import the pictures, the spreadsheets, and those other documents pertaining to a specific RCA. And one other thing that several of our clients like is the ability to import your corporate governance documents for company-wide RCA standards or your triggers tables and those type of things. The final feature that I'll talk about really briefly is the ability to label an RCA investigation or record as in progress, completed, stopped, or on hold. We can do this both with the RCA record or the file itself, and we can also do this with the solution or the action item. So this is a great way to ensure all items are completed relating to the RCA investigation, and then we can close them out when they're done to make sure they are. So that's just a few of the main features that people requested us go over in the webinar. If there's any further questions, you can email us or give us a call, and we'd be happy to take people through a longer demonstration or discussion on the capabilities of RC Pro Enterprise software.
Okay, thank you very much, Simon. So we've gotten through a lot of information today. We hope you found it all helpful. We'll be sending out a link to the recording after the webinar to everyone who registered. For more information about RealityCharting or Apollo RCA, you can always visit apollorootcause.com. When you exit from the webinar, you'll be presented with 2 quick questions asking for your feedback on this webinar, and we'd really appreciate your input on that. Just once again, thank you, Kevin, and thank you, Simon, and thanks to everyone for attending today. We look forward to having you at our next webinar.